They speak of power as if it descends in lightning strikes, sudden, divine, dramatic. But power is not a storm, it is a clock, and the one who owns the rhythm owns the end. Everything moves to a tempo. Revolutions, betrayals, alliances, collapses all keep time. The man who understands this does not need to shout, does not need to beg. He waits. And when the moment arrives, he does not blink. Because timing is not patience. It is preparation dressed in silence. Men are creatures of impulse. They want, they react, they flinch. But the ruler restrains his hunger until it serves him. He does not strike because he is provoked. He strikes because the world has tilted slightly in his favor, and the cost of inaction exceeds the price of the blow. Control the tempo, and you no longer need to be virtuous. You need only to be timely. The illusion of control is given to those who act too soon. The reality of control belongs to those who wait just long enough. The wolf who lunges early starves. The one who watches the herd, who waits for the weakest moment, feeds. This is not cruelty. This is the arithmetic of survival. Do not ask whether an act is right or wrong. Ask if it is ripe. Ask if the ground has softened, if the resistance has thinned, if the witnesses have looked away. Morality is a currency inflated by delay. But power appreciates when held until maturity. Most men confuse movement for progress. They gallop toward position, toward praise, toward conquest, only to find that they arrived before the world was ready to surrender, and so the world resists. And so they fall. It is not enough to be capable. It is not enough to be correct. You must be synchronized. Every decision, every pivot, every betrayal must land precisely when it cannot be stopped and must not be forgotten. What looks like courage is often nothing more than the illusion of urgency. But what looks like delay is sometimes the choreography of a kill. In politics, as in war, the early mover often opens the gate, but the last mover decides what passes through it. Do not be the first to announce. Be the last to act. Be the echo that silences all other noise. You must become the weight at the end of the pendulum, the final judgment in a contest of missteps. History forgets those who nearly ruled. It crowns those who struck at the precise second history begged for a ruler. Even betrayal, that most delicate blade, must be sheathed until it no longer feels like treachery, only inevitability. You do not betray a man when he is strong. You betray him when his allies are unsure, when his reputation flickers, when he himself has begun to doubt. That is not cowardice. That is strategy adorned in realism. The leader must become a connoisseur of declinable to smell it, taste it, predict it. And when he senses that rot in another, he does not warn, he does not weep, he waits. He allows them to dig deeper into their illusion until even the earth begins to reject their footing. To time the fall of another is to inherit their throne without blood, but to mistime it is to be buried with them. Even vultures know this. They do not attack the living, they wait. And when they descend, they do not ask permission. This is the cruel rhythm of command. You cannot teach it. You can only survive long enough to feel it in your bones. The impulse to act must be reconditioned into the impulse to watch, to learn, to predict. And then, when the moment arrives, when all resistance becomes ritual, when all escape routes are illusions, you strike. Not as an act of ambition, but as a response to gravity. Power does not fall by itself. It is seized by those who act decisively when others hesitate, and who know how to cloak their ambition until the moment of conquest. Timing is the architecture of dominance. Every fortress falls in time. Every empire collapses on schedule. The strategist studies not the strength of the wall, but the fatigue of the guard, the hunger in the city, the rust in the chain of command. He does not break the door. He waits until it opens itself. There are moments when a single hesitation is fatal, but more often, fatality lies in the rush. To act too soon is to teach your enemies your rhythm. To act too often is to wear your intentions on your sleeve. But to act with rare, devastating precision, that is to become a myth. Power blooms in the silence between panic and reaction. In that space, most men see emptiness. The ruler sees opportunity. Those who win do not simply do what others won't. They do it when others can't. While rivals are disoriented, distracted, fragmented by urgency, the strategist arranges the board, calmly, invisibly, until every move they make is already accounted for. It is not control over others that matters most. It is control over time, over the when, not just the what. To control timing is to edit the past before it happens, to write the ending before the play begins. And in a world so obsessed with noise, with speed, with immediacy, he who controls the pause controls the outcome. The greatest illusion is that power can be grasped through force alone. Force is blunt, it shatters, it alarms, it draws too many eyes. But the one who understands timing needs less force than anyone imagines. He moves not like a hammer, but like a shadow crossing a sundial, silent, unremarkable, yet decisive. The world thinks in moments. The ruler thinks in seasons. He understands that every ambition carries within it a clock, and the skill lies in knowing whether the hour is early, late, or exact. Even the most reckless desires obey a chronology. If you disrupt it, you drown in the undertow of your own impatience. Learn this above all. Men are governed not by facts, but by moods. The winds of fear, hope, anger, and exhaustion dictate more than constitutions ever will. To rule is to read these winds, to feel their subtle shifts, and to act when the air is still enough for your blow to land undisturbed. A commander who fights in the storm finds his own weapons turned against him. A commander who waits for calm bends the storm to his will, and when that moment comes, he does not hesitate. Hesitation is death disguised as prudence. The knife that pauses loses its edge. There is no honor in being first if you are buried for it. The first to rebel is often the first to be crushed. The first to forgive is often the first to be betrayed again. Do not rush to be the herald of change. Let others exhaust themselves in the open, drawing fire, bleeding credibility, and then, when the field is littered with their miscalculations, step forward as if you were always meant to be there. Victory tastes sweeter to the patient than to the desperate. A ruler must cultivate invisibility until he needs visibility. The hand that does not appear cannot be struck. To act in secret is to prepare the ground without awakening suspicion, but secrecy alone is not enough. The timing of revelation is the essence of power. Announce too soon, and you grant your enemies time to adjust. Announce too late, and you hand them the initiative. There is an art to emerging at precisely the moment your presence feels inevitable. The theater of politics rewards those who understand appearances. But appearances are nothing without the discipline of timing. A threat delivered too early becomes a joke. A gesture of mercy offered too late becomes contemptible. Even truth, if mistimed, hardens into a lie. Every move must feel not only deliberate, but fated, as if no other course was ever possible. This is how leaders transform calculation into destiny. Do not assume loyalty is permanent. Loyalty is a currency, and it depreciates faster than gold. Men are loyal to advantage, to fear, to the memory of kindness, but never to the point of self-sacrifice. A wise ruler watches for the moment when loyalty turns brittle, when an ally's hesitation in speech or gesture betrays a fracture in their allegiance. That fracture is the warning bell. You may choose to repair it with rewards, to reinforce it with terror, or to let it collapse and seize the pieces. But you may not ignore it. To ignore it is to invite your own ruin. And beware of mercy. Mercy untimely given is not virtue. It is weakness wrapped in good intention. The merciful ruler too often spares a foe who will sharpen his blade in gratitude. It is better to delay mercy until its effect will bind rather than embolden. Mercy should be rare and strategic, a gift that astonishes precisely because it was withheld until the recipient could no longer expect it. Power is not sustained by those who wish to be loved, nor by those who delight in being feared, but by those who understand that love and fear are levers, and levers only work when applied at the right moment. Too much fear, too long applied, breeds rebellion. Too much love, too freely given, breeds contempt. The ruler oscillates between them, never dwelling in either, always calibrating the tension. You will be told that the future belongs to the bold. This is only half true. The future belongs to the bold who have mastered time. To leap blindly is not boldness, but folly. True boldness is the audacity to wait when every instinct screams to act, and then to act with a violence so precise it leaves no room for reply. Most men live in a perpetual present. The ruler must learn to step outside of time, to see the chain of consequences before he tugs it, to hear the echo of his own decisions before they are spoken. He must study not only the tides but the moon that governs them, and once he understands their rhythm, he no longer fights the current. He rides it, bends it, and finally commands it. To control the timing is to command the unfolding of reality. It is to know when a word can wound more than a sword, when a silence can inspire greater terror than 1,000 soldiers. It is to strike when your enemy is least able to defend and most certain of his own safety. And it is to hold still, with iron will, as the impatient devour each other in their race to ruin. The game is never about who moves first. It is about who moves last. The first move invites response, retaliation, entanglement. The last move writes the ending. You must position yourself so that every action before yours serves you, knowingly or not. Let others claw and grasp for advantage. Let them exhaust their strength in skirmishes. And when the field is quiet, when all eyes have turned away, you move not as a soldier, but as an executioner delivering a verdict already decided. This is the architecture of supremacy: silence, observation, precision, timing. The leader who masters these needs no brilliance, no charisma, no divine right. He needs only to endure the wait and to recognize the moment when all resistance becomes futile. And then he acts not as a man pursuing power, but as the embodiment of inevitability itself. The world will never know how much discipline it took to wait. They will see only the act and call it genius. They will call it fate. They will not understand that you built fate yourself, hour by hour, in the shadows where history's true authors reside. To master timing is to master the outcome. To master the outcome is to master the world, and the world rewards only those who refuse to be hurried. Wait, watch, strike. That is the whole art, that is the whole burden, that is the whole crown. Do not mistake movement for progress. The world applauds the restless, the ones who fill the air with noise and gesture, who mistake their own agitation for agency. But their victories are hollow. They confuse speed with inevitability, forgetting that time punishes the hurried more cruelly than the hesitant. To wait is not to be passive. To wait is to tighten the spring until its release is absolute. In that stillness lies a power more destructive than any frenzy. There is a moment in every conflict when the outcome can still shift, when the lines are fluid, when the hearts of men quiver between hope and fear. To act before this moment is to court chaos. To act after is to be dragged behind events you could have commanded. The ruler must strike precisely as hesitation hardens into regret, as confidence curdles into despair. That is when a single gesture can topple a throne, when a whisper can sound louder than a cannon. You must learn to read the faces of those around you not for words, but for timing. The tightened jaw of a rival conceals more than his speeches. The averted gaze of an ally warns louder than his praise. To rule is to sense the invisible currents moving beneath visible acts. And when you feel the shift, you do not announce your knowledge. You keep it hidden, like a dagger sheathed in velvet, until the instant comes to unsheath it. In politics, nothing decays faster than trust. The very men who swear fealty today will weigh your fall tomorrow if it serves them. This is not malice, it is nature. And nature rewards those who understand that loyalty is never a fixed possession, but a temperature to be measured and adjusted. When warmth cools, you must choose. stoke it with rewards, or freeze it with fear. But never allow it to drift unattended. Betrayal is not born in a single moment. It grows, quietly, like mold behind a wall. The untrained eye sees only the surface, still smooth and strong. The ruler sees the spreading rot and knows when to let it spread, when to use it to weaken others, and when to tear the wall down with his own hands before it collapses on him. The timing of betrayal is an art few master. Strike too soon, and you reveal your own hand. Strike too late, and the knife intended for another finds your back. Consider ambition. In lesser men it burns hot and fast, consuming everything in its path until it dies in ashes. In the ruler, it must burn cold and slow, a hidden ember that lights only when the world's winds favor its flame. To display ambition too openly invites enemies. To bury it too deeply breeds paralysis. It must be seen at moments and hidden at others, revealed only when it terrifies more than it tempts. Most men are trapped in appearances. They see power in crowns, in titles, in armies. They do not see that these are the husks of power, not its source. True power resides in the unseen forces that shape men's choices, that dictate their fears, that bend their desires toward your ends without them knowing. To control these forces is to rule even without a throne. But to control them requires timing. Appear too eager, and you expose your levers. Appear too reluctant, and others will seize them. Even war, that most brutal instrument, obeys this principle. The general who rushes to battle when the terrain favors his enemy wastes not only his soldiers, but his future. The wise general studies not only the enemy's strength, but his rhythm of exhaustion. He lets the foe advance, lets him overreach, lets him grow drunk on his own victories. And then, when the enemy is fat with false confidence, he strikes not out of anger, not out of fear, but because the hour has arrived and will not return. Fear is a delicate tool. Apply it too strongly, and it stiffens into hatred. Apply it too lightly, and it dissolves into mockery. It must be refreshed, recalibrated, made sharp when it dulls, softened when it hardens. The ruler who wields fear like a bludgeon will find himself alone. The ruler who sprinkles it like a spice will find himself obeyed. But even fear is bound to time. A threat made too early inspires defiance. A threat made too late invites contempt. A threat made at the perfect moment paralyzes. Learn to love silence. In silence you hear what words conceal. You observe the restless, the impulsive, the schemers who cannot bear stillness. They reveal themselves by their need to act. You reveal nothing, because you have trained yourself to need nothing until the world is ready to give everything. To command silence is to unsettle your enemies and fortify your allies, for both will ask, what does he know that we do not? Fortune favors the one who prepares as if she does not exist. She is a fickle goddess, charmed by cunning, repelled by dependency. To blame fortune for failure is to confess weakness. To rely on fortune for victory is to invite ruin. Build your position as if no favor will come. Act as if every advantage is a trap. And then, if fortune smiles, let her arrival seem like part of your plan. There are times when mercy is more terrifying than punishment. To spare a defeated enemy when all expect his destruction is to bind him with the weight of your gift. But this mercy too must be timed. Offer it when your enemy is still defiant, and he will mistake it for weakness. Offer it when he is broken, and he will mistake it for justice. A ruler's mercy is never pure. It is a weapon concealed as grace. Men will tell you to be just. They will tell you to be fair. These words sound noble, but they are the vocabulary of those who do not rule. Justice is a theater. Its scripts are written by victors. To insist on justice in all things is to bind yourself to the impossible. The ruler's task is not justice but stability. If justice serves stability, employ it. If it threatens stability, discard it. You are not the custodian of ideals. You are the architect of survival. Survival requires foresight. The greatest enemy of foresight is urgency. To lead is to suppress the impulse to act when the heart pounds and the blood burns. Those who act from urgency mistake pressure for opportunity. The wise ruler acts only when urgency has passed, when the field has cleared, when he can see with cold eyes rather than hot veins. In this lies the difference between a momentary victor and a lasting sovereign. The first lesson of command is to appear in control even when you are not. The second is to actually be in control when it matters. Most fail the second because they mistake the performance for the reality. They forget that a performance convinces others, but timing convinces history. You may fool men for a season, but history is not fooled. It records only outcomes. And so you must ask yourself, always, is this the moment, or is this the moment before the moment? To act in the moment before is to labor in vain. To act in the moment after is to be too late. To act in the moment itself is to leave, no doubt. In that act, you seize not only victory, but the illusion that you were destined to win. This is the essence of power, not to possess, not to control, not even to dominate. It is to master fortune so completely that your success appears ordained by destiny, though it is built on calculation and force. And to achieve this requires one thing above all, the discipline to wait for the inevitable to ripen, and the ruthlessness to harvest it without pity. Do not mistake the stillness of the world for peace. Stillness is only the interval between storms, the pause where tensions gather unseen, like clouds thickening beyond the horizon. The ruler who relaxes in such moments seals his fate. He must keep his eyes fixed on the edges of the silence, listening for the first tremor, the faintest whisper of discontent. To rule is to sense the birth of storms long before others smell the rain. Power is not a crown upon the head, but a weight upon the chest. It constricts, it demands, it corrodes. Those who imagine it as freedom have never held it. They see only the ceremonies, the armies, the applause. They do not see the sleepless nights, the calculations without end, the knowledge that every ally can become an assassin and every smile a mask for envy. To lead is to carry a burden too heavy for the virtuous, too intricate for the naive, too merciless for the soft-hearted. Ambition eats at men differently. For some, it is an insatiable hunger, driving them to reach too far, too fast, devouring everything until they choke on their own victories. For others, it is a silent fire, burning steady, consuming slowly, turning them patient, methodical, and dangerous. The latter are the rulers history remembers not because they desired more, but because they timed their desire to the pulse of the world. Never forget, the world is a theater, and all who dwell in it are Actor 7 you. Every word you speak is a script, every gesture a performance, every silence an act. But unlike the stage, the theater of power has no rehearsals. Every mistake is written in blood. To master this theater, you must learn to speak without revealing, to move without exposing, to act without appearing to act. The prudent ruler hides his hand, letting others act as if of their own will, while he pulls the strings unseen until his advantage is too great to resist. There is no room for sentiment in these calculations. Sentiment clouds the vision, tugs at the hand, weakens the resolve. You may feel pity, yes. You may feel sorrow, yes. But never let these feelings guide your decisions. A single indulgence of the heart can undo decades of labor. To rule is to know when to cut away the rotting branch before it poisons the whole tree, even if that branch once sheltered you. Control is not absolute, nor can it ever be. Men are not puppets, but what can be controlled is perception. Shape how they see, and you shape how they move. Let them believe you are stronger than you are when you are weak. Let them believe you are weaker than you are when you are strong. Appear generous when you take, merciful when you destroy, reluctant when you impose. Make your harshest actions seem reluctant necessities, and your softest words seem deliberate strategies. Learn this. Power rests not in truth, but in belief. Men will believe what comforts them, what terrifies them, what serves their desires. They will even believe their own lies if you repeat them often enough. Use this weakness without apology, for if you do not, another will against you. To rule is to manipulate time itself, not time as the clock measures it, but time as men feel it. Slow time when they are restless, filling the space with promises, distractions, and ceremonies. Quick time when they are afraid, forcing them to decide before they can think, driving them into your arms because no other option remains. The ruler who masters this tempo need not fear revolt, for even rebellion requires a rhythmand you have stolen it from them. Every rival carries within him the seed of his own destruction. You do not need to plant it, you need only to water it at the right moment, to shade it from scrutiny until it grows strong enough to choke him. When you sense his pride swelling, let him overreach. When you see his alliances fraying, do not rush to attack, let him bleed his strength in trying to mend them. When he turns desperate, offer him false comfort. And then, when he clings to you as a savior, tighten the noose. You must understand that most men crave order, even if it enslaves them. They would rather suffer under a strong hand than drift in chaos. This is why fear works. This is why control, once achieved, can be made self-sustaining. But this order must feel natural. You cannot grip too tightly, or the people will choke. You cannot loosen too much, or they will wander. Your hand must be like gravity, unseen, inescapable, omnipresent. Do not mistake kindness for virtue. Kindness is a tactic, no more. When you are strong, use it to soothe. When you are weak, use it to deceive. But never let it become a habit, for habits harden into character, and character into fate, and fate is a luxury the ruler cannot afford. There will be times when you must destroy utterly. A half measure invites revenge. A spared enemy nurses hatred in silence, gathering strength until he strikes. If you crush him completely, you silence not only his voice, but the memory of his challenge. The world forgets quickly. Help it forget by leaving no one alive to remind it. But destruction too must wait for its hour. Rage urges you to strike now, to silence the insult, to erase the threat. Resist this urge. Ask yourself, will this act secure the throne, or will it awaken 10 new threats? Often the greater revenge is to let your enemy live long enough to see himself undone not by your hand, but by his own. Remember, your greatest asset is not power, but the belief that you are inevitable. Men obey not because they love you, nor because they fear you, but because they see no alternative. Create this illusion at all costs. Make rivals seem childish. Make alternatives seem dangerous. Make change seem impossible. And if change does come, make it seem as if you authored it all along. The weight of command will isolate you. Friends will drift. Lovers will sour. Allies will calculate. This loneliness is the price of supremacy. Accept it. Do not seek comfort in the counsel of others, for counsel often masks agendas. Listen to all. Trust few. Act alone. You will be blamed either way. So let the blame be for decisions that were truly yours. This is not a life for the faint. It is not a life for the just. It is a life for those willing to endure doubt, hatred, and exile, because they understand that only by embracing these can they shape the world rather than be shaped by it. To rule is to enter a pact with necessity. You are no longer free to act as you wish. You are bound to act as the world requires, and the world rarely requires kindness, honesty, or purity. It requires cunning, patience, and the cold willingness to do what others will not. This is why so few succeed. They falter not from weakness of hand, but weakness of will. They imagine themselves rulers, but recoil from the sacrifices rulership demands. They cannot endure the isolation, the suspicion, the endless calculations, and so they are unseated by those who can. In the end, timing is all. To seize power too early is to invite resistance. To seize it too late is to inherit a corpse. To seize it at the perfect moment is to make the world believe it placed the crown upon your head of its own accord. The wise ruler does not ask whether history will judge him harshly. He knows history judges only success. All else is forgotten. And so he waits. He watches. He prepares. And when the hour strikes, he moves not as a man, but as a force of nature, leaving no room for doubt, no space for defiance, no trace of hesitation. In that moment, he does not take power. He becomes power. Then listen carefully, because endings are the most dangerous terrain. They are not where power is lost. Power is lost long before, in 1,000 unnoticed hesitations, in the slow decay of fear, in the moments where appearances no longer hold. The ending is merely where the loss becomes visible. The ruler who understands this does not fight to the last breath like a cornered animal. He does not thrash in desperation, clawing at shadows, clinging to a throne already slipping from his grasp. He has prepared even for this. He has prepared for the day when the crowd no longer cheers, when the allies no longer bow, when the air thickens with the scent of blood, his blood. To rule well is to rule as if every act might be your final act, to consolidate not only power but memory, so that if you must fall, you fall as a legend, not a lesson. Men fear loss, but history does not honor those who linger past their time. There is a moment when retreat is stronger than advance, when absence wounds deeper than presence. The ruler who senses this moment can vanish like a god into myth, while those who come after live forever in his shadow. Yet even in exile, even in silence, the ruler's hand can shape the future, for power is not a crown or a palace or an army. Power is influence carried in the minds of men, influence that survives beyond your presence, influence that can outlast death itself. To achieve this is to defeat the tyranny of time, to make even your enemies speak your name with awe and fear. This, then, is the truth. To rule is to serve necessity, until necessity itself serves you, to act with precision, to wait with discipline, to strike with finality. And when all is done, to leave behind not a memory of weakness, but the impression of inevitability as though the world could never have been otherwise. You will not be loved, you may not even be understood, but you will be remembered. And in this cold, merciless theater of power, remembrance is the only immortality. Wait, watch, strike, disappear, and let the world believe you still command it from the shadows.